In order to be granted Swedish citizenship, you normally must have lived here for at least 5 years. However, not all the time spent here is included. It depends on the type of residence permit and the purpose of the stay. Let us get in the details of every aspect of Swedish citizenship, including requirements, eligibility, types, process, duration, documents, and benefits. There are 2 ways of securing Swedish citizenship. Foreigners can become citizens of Sweden in one of 2 ways. First is the application to the Swedish Migration Agency, and second is by notice. Both of them fall under the naturalization procedure of obtaining a Swedish passport. Temporary and permanent residency are available in Sweden. You can acquire this citizenship by ancestry, naturalization, and marriage. Although there is no direct way to secure a Swedish passport by investment, and the same citizenship requirements for EU citizens apply to non-EU ones. You should be living in Sweden for a minimum period of 5 years, based on a permanent residence permit is the main legal requirement for obtaining passport. Apart from that, here are the other criteria under which the immigration authority will consider your application. You should be at least 18 of age when filing for citizenship. Second is, you should have led a peaceful life in Sweden and respecting the local regulations. Third is that you should possess a valid Swedish permanent residence permit. You may apply for Swedish citizenship by descent if one or both of your parents are Swedish citizens. Even if a child is born outside of Sweden, their citizenship in Sweden is determined by their parents at birth. When a child is born to Swedish parents, they automatically become citizens of Sweden. However, exceptions apply to children of Swedish parents born prior to April 1, 2015. In this situation, the parent would have to provide the Swedish Migration Agency with a statement of Swedish citizenship. Foreign children adopted by Swedish parents before the age of 12 get Swedish passports immediately. When adopted, children who are older than 12 must go through the usual naturalization procedure. While there is no specific program, investors who want to start their own businesses in Sweden can do so and obtain permanent residency. The requirements are quite simple in terms of financial conditions, and citizenship can be obtained the usual route. Sweden does offer an opportunity for foreign entrepreneurs to establish residency by setting up a business in Sweden. The standard Swedish investment visa is valid for 1 year. However, if you choose to live in Sweden, you can apply for a residence permit that is valid for 5 years, which will allow you to achieve the minimum required residency of 5 years to apply for. The investment visa does have income requirements to make sure that investor can successfully support themselves and their family during their residence period. As the investor, you must hold a minimum of 200,000 SEK for yourself, plus an additional 100,000 SEK for your spouse or partner, and 50,000 SEK. For example, if you're moving to Sweden with your spouse and 2 children, you'd need to show proof of 400,000 SEK. In addition to the income requirement, investors must also demonstrate that they have experience running a business and must own at least 50% of the business. The language requirement is fluency in either Swedish or English. Swedish citizenship brings certain rights and obligations. For example, only people with Swedish citizenship have the right to vote and stand as candidates in elections to the Swedish Parliament. Swedish citizens may be conscripted to national service, can get a Swedish passport, and are entitled to consular assistance abroad. In general, you must be a Swedish citizen to represent Sweden in sports. In addition, certain positions in the public sector and in the police service and the Swedish Armed Forces require that you are a Swedish citizen. However, for most other rights and obligations, example, social insurance entitlement to compulsory education and tax matters, citizenship is of no or very little significance. This generally depends on where you live and/or work. Sweden's naturalization process for non-citizens is relatively straightforward. Non-Swedish nationals can apply for Swedish citizenship through the naturalization process as long as they meet a specific set of criteria prior to their application. Basic requirements are: you should be 18 years of age or older. Ability to prove your identity. You should hold a permanent residence permit or have the right to residency. This requirement applies to EU citizens and their close relatives. You should meet the habitual residence requirement. That is minimum of 5 years. Maintain a standard of good conduct while living in Sweden. And ability to pass language and society knowledge exams when they become available around 2025. The first step towards citizenship in Sweden is to obtain your initial temporary residence. You can apply for a residence permit by mail or in person at a Swedish embassy in your home country. The process includes an application with supporting documents and a formal interview. You'll need to submit the following documents with your application. 1. Completed residence permit for visitors application form. 2. Completed child application, if applicable. 3. Notarized copies of your passport. 4. Bank statements. 5. Return ticket. 6. Letter from your insurance company with proof of international insurance to cover medical emergencies, hospital treatment, and repatriation costs. 7. The minimum coverage must be 30,000 euros. Coverage must be good for the duration of your stay. And last is the application fee, that is 1,000 SEK. This fee is waived for any citizens of Switzerland or Nordic and EU countries. Once you have obtained official residency in Sweden, you will need to remain in the country for a minimum of 5 years before you are eligible to apply for citizenship. During this time, residents can leave the country for short periods, up to 6 weeks a year, for travel or business. But any time beyond 6 weeks a year will be subtracted from your total years counted towards residency. This time frame can be shortened to 3 years if you've already been living with a Swedish citizen outside the country before taking up residence in Sweden. For example, if you lived with your Swedish spouse in the United States for 2 years prior to moving to Sweden, then you'd only need to hold Swedish residency for the 3 remaining years to qualify. During your residency, it's extremely important to be an upstanding citizen, as the authorities will consider this factor during your naturalization application process. The Swedish Migration Agency will conduct a thorough investigation to ensure that you haven't committed any crimes, aren't behind on paying taxes or other fines, have outstanding debt, or if you've had unpaid debts reported to the Swedish Enforcement Authority. Then you must wait 2 years from the date you pay off the debt before applying for citizenship. Criminal offenses can also extend the eligibility period for citizenship, depending on the severity of the crime. For example, a 1-month custodial sentence can add an additional 4 years to the process. As long as you meet all of the naturalization requirements, you can submit your electronic application to the Swedish Migration Agency. You can include your children in your online application, so you won't need to submit a separate one for each family member. You'll need to prove your identity during the application process, which you can do with your existing passport. Alternatively, a close relative who is a Swedish citizen can attest to your identity. You don't have to verify your identity if you've lived in Sweden for more than 8 years and haven't changed your identity during that time. While the application process for Swedish citizenship is easy, the approval process is lengthy. In 2022, the Swedish Migration Agency reported that only 75% of all applications are processed within 39 months.